Hey, you guys, Rasat out here in Singapore, and I'm so glad to be here with you on the Night Owl podcast. So, thank you so much once again for joining me. And as always, it's just a matter of me sitting here talking to you about the things that I've realized in daily interactions. So, it could be inspiration from anywhere, honestly. It could be quotes from Instagram, it could be videos, it could be YouTube videos, TED Talks, podcasts, it could be conversations with my friends, with clients. Honestly, music, lyrics, anything. And I really do try to remain as open as possible because as much as I get these messages for everyone else, they are actually healing to me as well. So every one of these moments where I have like a little epiphany, I just want to jump on here and share with you guys because maybe it's what you need to hear at the time. Maybe it's something that's specific to you. So time, place, context, that doesn't matter. Whenever you find this message, I hope it speaks to you in such a way that it gives you a little bit more of an understanding, a little bit more perspective for you to consider, and then actually helps you find more peace in your life, because ultimately that's what I want. It's my one and only goal to find peace in my life. And if I can spread some of that around for all of you as well, absolutely, that's all that I really, really want to do. So, as you guys know, I have been going back through Michelle Obama's book, Becoming. I read it last year, and while it was a little difficult for me to comprehend and kind of digest last year, it took me a little bit longer than usual to read this book. But I was really, really excited when I saw that not only was Brene Brown's Netflix original show available, that Becoming was also available from Michelle Obama. So while I have read the book already once before, it was nice to see it come alive in her own words, because this was clips and stuff taken from her book tour. And whether she was on stage or with a smaller group of people, it was really nice to see through her eyes what exactly she was trying to portray in the book. So I wanted to talk to you about the fact that she had a big real life awakening, because she went from, Chicago, Illinois to the White House, and that journey of becoming a mom, becoming a first lady, dealing with the press, dealing with her husband's campaign and his terms in the White House, the way that she dealt with the people that were in and around her all day, every day, the way she saw the butlers dressed in the White House, the way her security detail took care of her. It was very, very human in her approach. And I really appreciate that, because not many people have that sensibility to be able to do that even after they've reached a certain level of success or recognition. I don't want to say celebrity, but that idea that people know who you are and they have a certain measure of respect for you because of your status in life. So I thought it was really beautiful, because there was something in the Becoming original Netflix show that she described as having to find a way to define herself before anyone else could get the chance to do it for her. So she had to be very sure of the things that she believed in, the things that she stood for, what she was trying to put out there as a message for the mass public. And I thought it was really interesting, because I had no idea. I had no idea how much scrutiny she was under. I mean, you have a small idea, but when she broke it down for like tabloids and the things that people were using as headlines. It was clips from bits and pieces of things that she had said. And the fact that she was actually contributing to her husband's campaign, not monetarily, but she was able to rally hearts and minds and have people think outside the box a little bit more, with a little bit more compassion and kindness, was helping her husband's campaign. So it was all that people could do to bring her down by discrediting her, by painting her as this rebellious wife, as this outspoken woman. How could she possibly be a good mom if she's on the road all the time with the kids? How could she support Obama because he wasn't from here, or whatever? Like all this terrorist mentality, these radical descriptions of who she was, completely taken out of context, and I felt really badly for her. But when she said that she had to define herself first before the rest of the world defined her on her behalf, I really resonated with that. And it's something I've been doing without really thinking about. Like, I'm not anywhere near the league that Michelle Obama is in by any means. But I did realize at some point that I was going to have to take a stand on a couple of things. I couldn't remain vague anymore. I couldn't be on the fence and be like, yeah, I'm not going to subscribe to this group and I'm not going to subscribe to that group either. Because I also know that if I don't stand for something, I will fall for anything. And ultimately, I know that my life has been one long, horrendous lesson in love for other people and love for myself as well. I knew that when I started my brand, Rasati, that it was going to be a situation where I had to decide for myself what it is that I was trying to teach. Why was I being a coach? What was I trying to help people understand? What part of my journey could be looked at as an example and help people find the light in their own lives? I know people are in a constant state of suffering over one thing or another. It's part of our experience here as humans, and I want to make sure that people understand that there are alternatives to suffering. You could understand what it is that's hurting you, that's paining you, and then choose for yourself whether you want to associate with that still, if you want to try and heal it, if you have tried and it's not working, do you step away? All those kinds of choices are in your hands. But for me to be able to go ahead and speak that language and teach that lesson, I needed people to know who I was. So before people decided to, guess about my background and make assumptions about who I was and where I came from, because honestly, as with any person, some people just kind of come out of nowhere, right? You don't know where they came from. They say all these things, they claim all these things, and then it's a matter of when they open their mouth, are they actually able to speak the language that they claim to understand? And so when I started speaking up a little bit more and telling people my story in bits and pieces and helping people understand what I've learned along the way, I found myself slowly defining who I was. I've never been one for pigeonholes. I've never been one to be to be confined by one box or another. I feel like I belong in a lot of different boxes, and my background is there to show that. I haven't lived in one country all my life. I've lived in plenty. I haven't gone to one school or two schools all my life. I've been to 10 different schools in 5 different countries, 7 different languages, all before I hit the age of 14. So I've been through a lot of chaos and a lot of disruption in my life, and for me to find calm no matter what now is because of that experience as a child, that fighting to figure out who you are, how to fit in so you maybe become popular, or how not to stand out so you don't get bullied all the time. It was a very, very complicated dance, I will say. And when Michelle Obama mentioned that, she had to define herself, I realized that's what I've been trying to do all my life. And eventually, once I stopped reinventing myself, I landed on this idea, this concept that I am not any one thing. I can move around with different groups of people from different age group, from different stations in life, from different levels of relationship status, any of those things, because I have been who they are at one time or another. I'm not saying that I understand your pain entirely because I've been exactly in your shoes, but I know what it's like to be a stepmom. I know what it's like to be a single mom. I know what it's like to be a married woman. I know what it's like to be cheated on. I know what it's like to be in a situation where I'm so scared that I can't choose for myself because I'm afraid of the repercussions of my choices, so I stayed silent. I know what it's like to not have a say in the way I express myself with fashion or with makeup or with my hair because my mom was very, very, very conservative. I know what it's like to grow up in an Asian community where you're not allowed to talk about your feelings outside of your house. And even then, you're very limited in what you can say about your feelings inside the house because you don't talk back to your parents. You don't disrespect your elders by questioning their motives or their requests of you. I know what it's like to live in the West. I know what it's like to live in the East. I know what it's like to be an Easterner living in the West. I know what it's like to be questioned based on my religion, based on the color of my skin, based on my bone structure. I know that people have this anger towards women and the way that they dress and the way that they're treated. And if you come up with a complaint about sexual abuse, they're going to ask you, first question, what did you do to egg it on, to encourage it? What were you doing? Why were you in that position in the first place? I know all of those things because I've lived in all of those positions at one time or another. I know what it's like to be physically abused. I know what it's like to be beaten up. I know what it's like to have parents who are there for you. And I also know moments where my parents abandoned me. I know all of those things. I know what it's like to be the oldest child. I know what it's like to be raised in a family where you weren't allowed to be tomboyish because it was not ladylike. So you weren't allowed to run around with the boys, even though all your cousins were boys. You had to be prissy and frilly, and yeah, that was not who I was. I know what it's like to speak up and choose love for yourself only to have it go wrong, miserably wrong, and then have everyone pointing to you like, yeah, we tried to tell you, dog. You shouldn't have done that in the first place. I know because I've lived all of those things. And because I tell my story, I'm letting the world know that I understand these things. It is the feelings that I can communicate and the words that I've used and my view of the world now that shows the rest of the world exactly who I am. And I have not wavered, I have not changed, I haven't talked about both sides of my mouth. I have had to define who I am, but it's not one thing and it's not easily explained. Meet me in person, you know what I mean. But what I had to decide was, where do I stand on some of these issues? I know people are real quick to jump on the racism bandwagon. Is this racist or is it not? Is it okay for these people to behave a certain way while another group of people are not, when the rules are supposedly the same? Is it okay for us to claim a country based on the war and genocide that the flag represents, without claiming the genocide itself? Can you call yourself a Jaffna Tamil without claiming Sri Lanka as a whole? It's one town in a whole country, but the whole country went through genocide. It wasn't just remotely, contained within Jaffna itself. It happened in Colombo, it happened in Kandy, it happened in Haldamulla, it happened in, Ayla. It happened all over. But is it okay to say, no, I don't represent that flag? Or is it racism to separate or segregate people based on language, on color, on whatever? I needed to make sure that people understood that I am not for hate in any shape or form. I don't want to segregate people. I don't want to push people from these people and those people. All of us are people. All of us have this human experience. And I needed people to understand that Rasati is an inclusive brand. It is based on my characteristics, my morals, my beliefs, and you don't have to like them. Just like you don't have to like Versace, you don't have to like Gucci, you don't have to like Nike, you don't have to like Adidas. You have your preferences and that's cool, but this is who I am. And this brand is an extension of me. And I would love it if you find things about my brand that you actually like, and it's okay if you don't. That's totally up to you. But it's been the journey of my life wrapped up in a name, an idea. And I'm hoping that I have defined it enough so that people don't feel the need to make up stories about me. I've talked about me enough where people know who I am. And if they've come into contact with me, they know that the made up me, as in like the one with makeup, and the one without still speaks the same language. Whether I have the perfect lighting and the greatest backdrop and, a perfectly coiffed head and beautiful jewelry and makeup to, dress to the nines or whatever, whether I'm in that state or whether I am just rolling out of bed first thing in the morning, I'm going to say the same thing. This is not, curated for the public on certain occasions. It's me all day, every day. And mostly because my daughter sees me every day. So I can't afford to be one person in the public and one person at home. I am me no matter where I am. And that is why I loved, really resonated when Michelle Obama was talking about the fact that she saw the need to define herself before anyone else did it for her. If you've noticed, people don't like gaps in stories. They like to make up what the gaps represent. It's the same thing with if you send a message to a friend and they don't respond for many hours, and you're going to make up a story about why they didn't, so that you feel better about why you're upset because you haven't heard from them. It's the same thing. People are going to fill in the blanks wherever they can. And my job, for me, to protect me and to define me and to let my daughter know that I am the same mom that goes out and films to be on Nadigams on Basantham as the same mom who is dancing and singing out of tune in the kitchen while I cook her lunch or whatever. The only way I can do that is to tell people who I am. Tell people every time they ask, every time they have questions, I just tell people who I am. I have nothing to hide. There is nothing about me that is shady, I hope, or pretend, because I have lived all of these things. I have been in your shoes at one point or another, and I need you guys to know it's because of those experiences that I stand before you today with a measure of peace in my heart and want you guys so desperately to be able to find that peace for yourselves as well, because I know how much noise it cut out when I found the peace. So if you have any other questions, please, by all means, drop me comments. If you want to talk to me one-on-one, maybe because you have a specific question you need answered and would rather not put it out in public for people to see, please DM me, let's talk. But in the meantime, you guys, trust me, peace is the journey. Peace is the goal. And I want that so badly for all of you. I love you guys. Bye.